You're on.
Hello. I had a few more things I wanted to share with you, so I put on one of my best red hats, and I'm ready to go. First of all, we learn a lot from birds. If we watch birds, we will definitely gain some insight. And one thing I just learned about birds is all of them, I do believe all of them, cover the wrinkles in their neck with feathers. They cover the wrinkles in their neck with feathers. So today I decided to try the same thing and see if I could camouflage some of my wrinkles. One day the children and I were entering an expressway and it was dark, and suddenly the car motor died. So I pulled off to the side and we had to wait in the dark until someone came by. Finally, a man did come, checked the car, got us moving again. And just as he left, I noticed that our young Michael, my boy, was standing with the tire iron held close to his body. He was repaired in case the person who stopped wasn't stopping for the proper reason. What a young guy. He grew up so fast when his dad left. Such maturity. There are a lot of things that we can plan to make people laugh, but some things we don't plan. They just happen. I took my group of very young children to the park. Each one had a little bagged lunch. We had about 25 or 30 kids there. And they all ate their lunches and had a good time. And then I said, now, is everybody finished? And they said, oh yes, we are. So I went around and gathered up what was left on their plates. And I said, I'm going to throw this into the bushes and the birds will have a party. So I gathered up 2 hands full of the goodies and turned and walked toward the bushes. I never got there because in that split second, several spider monkeys came from who knows where, climbed my slacks, and believe me, I dropped all the food pieces, and they had their party right there. I don't think the kids will ever forget their teacher being climbed on by several spider monkeys. When I was a counselor at a Christian camp, I had a little girl in my room, in my cabin, named Joyce. And she was a cute little girl, and I didn't know then that she would later meet and marry my brother. Nor did I know that years later, when the government said to AT&T, you are too big, you've got to break up your company. And who do you think they called to be on the committee to help AT&T decide what to do? But little Joyce from my cabin in the woods. Oh my, what a surprise. There was a lady in our church that it looked like needed to be put in a special home. And so I took her around to visit several of them. And I didn't really tell her that I felt she needed to go, but she lived alone and things were getting kind of strange. One day the phone rang. When I answered it, Marguerite said, aha, you've been taking me around to visit these homes, but now I realized what you've been up to, and I'm calling to tell you that you are the one that needs to be placed in a goofy chapel. That's what she called the place. You need to be placed in a goofy chapel. There was an interview time, and Laurel heard about it. It was to get a sports announcer, or actually a sports writer. And Laurel went down to the interview with the newspaper, and they asked her a number of questions. And one question was, what experience, Laurel, have you had in the sports world? And her answer was simple. She said, well, I have looked at a few football games on TV with my husband. Well, Laurel got the job. Certainly not because of that answer. I think it was because of her beautiful face. Mothers know about this kind of thing. One day there was a knock on the front door, and when I answered it, a young man said, I just talked to your son. He wants me to talk to you about the charge for cleaning your roof. Well, I almost charged out of the door at this man, because the one he was referring to was not my son. It was Paul, my husband. I ride in the back seat in the car all the time. So Paul doesn't drive Miss Daisy around as her chauffeur. He's driving Miss Dizzy. I really like to sit in that back seat. One day I was working in an office in Austin, Texas, as a receptionist, and in came a very pretty lady. And you'll know what I mean when I tell you her name was Jane Mansfield. Yes, the very shapely actress. She filled out the forms to have her daughter looked at by the doctor, and I noticed that down where it said husband's occupation, she had written package store. And I said, oh, is that where you take your gifts to have them wrapped before you give them away? And I thought, oh boy, I sure let her know how naive I was on that question. My mom knitted me some bright red mittens for the St. Louis cold. She even lined the mittens with soft white material, cozy material. All of a sudden I got home from the bus and realized I had left one mitten on the bus. Mother said, oh well, keep wearing the other one. Whoever found the first one is just waiting for you to lose the second one. So I minded Mom. I kept using the other mitten, and sure enough, one day I lost it. Yes, it was on the bus. One time I sent Laurel a letter, and then she answered it and sent her letter back. And I just couldn't resist, as a teacher, grading her letter. So I pulled out my red pen and I began to make marks on her letter on what needed to be changed to make it proper. Well, Laurel found out about that, and she said very clearly, okay, Mom, if you ever grade another letter, just don't put it away, frame it, because it will be the last letter you ever get from me. I guess that set me straight. Paul tells everyone our home is decorated in early Salvation Army. It's one thing when after the Sunday morning service, the pastor notices fingernail clippings on the seat in the pews at church. But when he finds toenail clippings, he figures somebody has really gone too far. There was the day when Laurel called up and said, oh, Mom, I'm having such fun with Lindsay, but I just have to have another baby. I just have to see those little diapered bottoms running, toddling up and down the hall. I've got to have another baby. And she did, precious Michaela. One Christmas, we put Mike, Laurel's older brother, into a daycare. He'd only been there a couple of days when we heard him walking around the house talking to himself, which was pretty unusual. We went close and he was saying again and again to himself, little boys don't say damn. Little boys don't say damn. Uh-oh. Mary was having trouble with certain words like the word off. She would say O-S-S, us, trying to get that word out. And one day she was standing in the living room saying, us, and I went in to see what was wrong. She had a ribbon hanging from her wrist, and on the end of the ribbon was her pacifier. The reason she was upset was Michael had gently entangled his pet snake in the ribbon, and it was swinging back and forth as she cried out to it, us, but it definitely didn't get off. My mother loved this quotation, and I'm going to end with this. To my God, a heart of flame. To my fellow man, a heart of love. To myself, a heart of steel. Bye-bye.